The mystery for the meditation today on this first Saturday is the Nativity. Shepherds said to one another, "Let us go over to Bethlehem, and let us see this word that has come to pass, which the Lord has showed to us." And they came with haste, and they found Mary and Joseph and the infant lying in the manger. As is my custom, I'd like to turn to Lourdes, the apparitions. The fifth apparition lines up with the third mystery of the Holy Rosary, because the fifth apparition is the third in the 15 days. This happened on a Saturday, in February 20th. As word spreads, crowds begin to gather at the grotto, a cave not unlike the stable in Bethlehem. Tradition tells us that the stable to which the Holy Family resorted on the first Christmas was indeed a cave. The fact that the Christ, the Word made flesh, was conceived in a cave at the house in Nazareth and then born in a cave in Bethlehem forever sets the stage for how godly restorations are started. They resorted to caves, having been rejected by man. Consider a few examples. In the Old Testament, King David fled to a cave in his flight from the diabolically possessed King Saul. Remember, David never spoke a word against Saul. Amazing. We read in the first book of Kings, "And all that were in distress and oppressed with debt and under affliction of mind." Oppressed with debt, distress. Sound familiar? And under affliction of mind. Got a lot of that today too. What did they do? They gathered themselves unto him, and he became their prince. And were there with him, about 400 men. From that cave, King David worked slowly but surely to restore the promised land and much more to God's chosen people. The prophet Elias, Saint Elias, fought very hard. He fought very hard to overcome all that offended God under King Ahab and his wicked Queen Jezebel in the northern kingdom of Israel, only to be sent fleeing to a cave on Mount Horeb. But from there, being carefully instructed by God's gentle love, he was able to start a restoration that continued after he himself was taken up in a fiery chariot. Began in a cave. The Christians in Rome withdrew to the catacombs, the desert fathers to caves in the Egyptian desert, St. Anthony leading the way, followed by great men like St. Benedict in Norcia. He began in a cave. St. Dominic, he began in a cave. St. Ignatius, he began in a cave. And many others. As we have often stated, the cave for us is our duties of our state in life. If we are harassed by modern man, let's get back to this cave and grace will flow. Peace of soul will be found again. On that cold morning in Lourdes, February 20th, 1858, even before the sun has begun to brighten the day, a small crowd watches as Bernadette again falls into a rapture. Candle in hand, praying the rosary, her face becomes all smiles, and she makes graceful bows and signs of reverence. On the first Christmas, word has spread to the shepherds and then to the Magi and then to all of mankind. St. Maximus the Confessor describes what the Magi saw upon arriving at the cave. The Blessed Virgin was brilliant and exceedingly beautiful, he says, after the birth. Not normal for a woman giving birth. Obviously, there was a miraculous birth. She showed no signs of childbirth. She was brilliant and exceedingly beautiful after the birth. For she too was filled with grace and light of the birth, he says, and it was a wondrous thing for all those who saw it. Those of goodwill come to the ancient grotto, the cave of the Nativity in Bethlehem, to offer their gifts and begin their own restoration. Thus the Magi, St. Maximus. The Magi, persuaded by all these miracles and splendors, rejoiced and gave thanks to the Lord. That is also why they worshipped him humbly as God and King, and they offered precious gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, as to a king and God, and to one who became incarnate for our sake, and who was headed for death, he writes, so that we will receive from him immortality. Let us always be reverent before the mysteries of the Lord and his mother, bending the knee in humility, making the sign of the cross as Bernadette did so well, with care, and giving visible gifts as signs of our total gift of self. Conversing with the lady, Bernadette learns a prayer that she is to keep secret, and so she did, and yet needs to pray every day of her life, and she did this too. Like the shepherds of Christmas, the onlookers returned to the city of Lourdes, glorifying and praising God for what they had seen and heard. Everyone of goodwill who comes to the cave of the Nativity falls into some level of wonder. They see something unexpected. God become a harmless child. The instinct is to drop to our knees and pray. It is here that we can start all our meditations, interior conversation with a divine friend that is personal and private and intimate. Kneeling before the crib, it's easy to pray to God, a little child. Surely this is one of the reasons the very gospel used for Christmas Day Mass is always the last gospel for every other Mass. The Church is saying, start here. That is with the last gospel of the Mass. Start here with your thanksgiving and meditation at the crib. Start now to pray and build up that interior union with this child and his mother, and the divine restoration that always begins in caves will begin anew, starting in your heart.